After going for almost an entire year, that's when something changed. So many of us men are trying to just push forward and shove emotions down. I felt this warm hug that, like, good job, you've listened, you sacrificed, you've gone and done this. And then within 24 hours, I felt a slap across my face. Money makes the person more of who they are, of who they truly are.
Welcome to the Successful Saints podcast, where we share stories of faithful stewardship and success to inspire you to grow your talents and build the kingdom. Today's guest, Bubba Page, is a seasoned entrepreneur and investor whose journey weaves business success with sharing the gospel online using social media. In this conversation, Bubba opens up about the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, the lessons faith have taught him along the way, and how stewardship shaped the way he leads at home and in business. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Let's dive into a little bit of your history, kind of introduce yourself and a little bit more about your journey here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, I'm a dad of 8, and I've got 4 boys, 4 girls, 5 to 15, twins at the end. It is pure chaos all the time, and I love it. Being a dad is the best. I think one of the greatest callings you can have is to be a mother or father. Another thing some people ask is Bubba my real name? Well, I was called Bubba ever since I was a fat baby, and the name stuck. So it was a nickname. My real name is Brain. My entrepreneurial journey started in college. So right after my mission, I served a mission in Brazil. Further south, you can go Porto Alegre do Sul. And I got invited to join this early stage company as a student. I had no idea what an entrepreneur was. I had no one in my family that was an entrepreneur. And I joined and traveled around the country selling office furniture, of all things. And then I started my own company in 2009, and bootstrapped, which means I didn't take any outside funding, no venture capital, no loans, and just began. And it was called Launch Lead. It was in a business to business, like outsource sales. The long story short is I sold it in 2020, right before COVID changed the world. And if it wouldn't have happened within that 24-hour time frame, if the wire hadn't been on Friday, we had our twins on Sunday. That Monday, the hospital shut down with COVID. I don't think the transaction.
Yeah, that would have been a close call.
So tender mercy, we'll put it that way. And then in the interim, from 2014 to 17, I started a venture-backed software company, and that one didn't pan out. Had to shut it down. And so talk about the highs and lows that you mentioned in the bio or whatever. It was so hard to go through a failure of a business that didn't work, and a lot of it I took personally. Like, I was a personal failure, and it took me about 6 months of understanding that I and my team had given everything we had, and that the dynamics didn't work out, but that I had to relearn that God still loves me and has a purpose. And I think now I can look back and see how he humbled me to a place of being more willingness to become more awake, almost like a rebirth into the gospel for me, where I was always an active member, served a mission, my callings, whatever. But it wasn't until 2016, when things were starting to shut down, that I dedicated going to the temple on a weekly basis. I lived in Draper, and it was 5 minutes towards 7 minutes. And I had gone to the temple, but maybe like every quarter. And I felt inspired to go on a weekly basis. And I started going from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And I'll be honest, I didn't love it. I didn't love going. After going for almost an entire year, that's when something changed. And it was like the windows of heaven opened, and there was this gift bestowed, like a little download or revelation that came. And for me, that was what it was, almost like I had earned something. I don't know if that's how God works, but it was like I was obedient to the commandment of going to the temple, but I was going frequent enough that maybe there was like a barrier I had to break. And it was probably my own thick skull that I had to break through, and being humble enough to learn what he needed me to learn. And at that moment, after that year mark, I no longer had to go, it wasn't I should go to the temple anymore. It was like I needed the temple from there on out. And so I've tried to go since then, 2016. Since then, I've tried to go weekly. And it hasn't been perfect, but I've tried to go weekly because I know I receive strength beyond my own ability to fight against the adversary and his temptation, that I have more protection and guidance. And it's not that God's going to keep me from bad things, hence going through a divorce last year. That is not something that was in my plans, nor would I want that, nor does anyone want that. But he was there to comfort and to guide me through the hell that I had to go through. And just the experience of breaking up a family is not ideal.
Yeah. That's good.
But I leaned in on God, and I turned to him because I couldn't do it on my own. And I think it was the temple that had almost prepared better for those types of trials and challenges. So whenever anybody asks me like, geez, how did you get through this and still keep your faith? The temple was one of the absolutely most important things for me that helped me get through the hardest challenges for sure.
Yeah.
So pro tip, go to the temple as frequently as you can and lean on him through the trials instead of running.
For me personally, whenever I've gone consistently, or a lot of times when I go, it feels like it's just like a normal experience. But every once in a while, there's those big experiences that then you're like, oh, thank goodness I went to the temple. Like that was where I needed to be to hear that at that time. That's how I started my entrepreneurial journey. I've always done side projects, and it was in the temple that I was sitting there in the celestial room that all of a sudden a strong voice came in my head, said, you're going to start your business on August 15th. And I was like, whoa. Like I'd been thinking about it, but like I was like, well, I'll see when the time is right. Just being there allows the Lord to give you the pieces of information you need when you need it. I think sometimes we miss out if we don't have that. And that's where a lot of that strength comes from.
He gave me a deeper depth of understanding of the scriptures. And it was really cool because the more I studied in the scriptures, the more I would understand the temple. And the more I was in the temple, it felt like I had more understanding of the scriptures. So it was this perfect, like circular motion. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to now, if I miss a week, for example, if I'm traveling or something's going on, I can feel almost like the lack of help or support from the Spirit than when I do go. And now I can notice the difference, whereas before I was living life and couldn't really tell because I just didn't have it as much. And so it's fascinating as we get to know the Holy Ghost and the Spirit and how it affects our lives more, we'll become more in tune with what it can do and what it can speak to us. Now, I even have this bracelet I got at a little healing retreat earlier this year. And I went to one last year, and I had stamped in here myself a phrase. And this one says tune in, or you can read it backwards, like in tune. Mm-hmm. And for me, this was like my phrase of the year. I wanted to make sure that I was in tune with my God, that I was in tune with my own body, that I was in tune with my children, and that I was in tune with how I could be a help or in the world. And so this is just a daily reminder for me, not that you have to have a bracelet to have a daily reminder, but sometimes a little Post-it note, or you can write with a little wet erase on your mirror or something.
Yeah.
But somewhere where you see it frequent enough that you remind yourself of that goal. I love having something that can hit each year, and it changes each year. There's a phrase. And this one, though, it's also the tagline of the soon-to-be launched Fatherhood Movement. And Fatherhood Movement, to me, is a place where I can bring more people to Christ, number one. And number two, connect these fathers with their children in unique ways so that they can bond. Fathers, just like mothers, we need healing and we need time to connect with our children. And we need to have a community of like-minded men to walk through life together. And if one person is dealing with something, let's say with a child, someone in the group probably has dealt with that before. And whether they had success or not, we can learn from each other, share resources and guides. So Fatherhood Movement, and then even a book that I'm working on, it kind of connects entrepreneurship and fatherhood together. And so entrepreneurship and fatherhood, where, I mean, my background is those two things. For the most part, I've spent most of my life in those two areas.
Yeah.
And again, still Christ-centered, but taking the elements of how we run a business and incorporating them in how we run our family. It's fascinating how similar these organizations are, a business and our family. Mm-hmm. And yet we tend to not run them the same way. And so I just looked at how I run a business, and I have meetings and KPIs, metrics. We have trainings, we do conferences, we even do marketing. And there's these elements of a business that help it to run and become more profitable. And my goal is that you can run your family like you would run a business. Now, with the relevant portions of it. And I love to do one-on-ones with my children, just like I would do one-on-ones at work. Mm-hmm. And I want to come to know the depths of where they're feeling. What are their friends like? Are they writing down goals? Are they accomplishing goals? Making sure we have responsibilities divided. As fathers, our job is to lead in the home as the patriarch of your home, and also maybe in these core metrics or design.
Yeah.
And then you and your spouse can work out, okay, let's responsibly divide up, what we can do to make it reasonable.
Yeah.
But I've just loved this piece so much. And I've met with so many men within my own network and out on social followers and whatnot, where their wives are calling for their men to step up and to lead. And I think a lot of men, they just don't know how. They've never been trained.
Mhm.
No one taught them what a family operating system could look like, what a father operating system should be. And the only example they have is of their own father. And if there wasn't
Yeah.
a great example coming from their own father, or their own father was a great human who maybe didn't know what to do from a gospel's perspective. My job, my hope is that I can help create a structure that can be flexible in nature, but that they can turn to, look at, follow, and incorporate these positive benefits dynamic.
Mhm.
And that hope is that it, number one, can bring them closer to Jesus, and two, bring them closer to their spouse and their children. And if we can, to get into the depths of their souls and start to heal from the inside out. So many of us men are trying to just push forward and shove emotions down. And I think there's a piece of us that still needs the atonement in its true depth.
Yeah.
And that is not a surface level healing. That is a in-depth healing.
I've actually had a lot of the same thoughts about fatherhood. I'm like, it feels like there needs to be more support and resources for fathers. I want to shift a little bit.
Sure.
On social media, you're very open about your beliefs. Was there a moment that you realized, hey, I can utilize my social media for both business, personal, and to share my beliefs?
100%. It was probably back in 2017. I recorded a YouTube video called "What Do Mormons Believe?" or "What Do Mormons Really Believe?" And we spent 45 minutes on camera talking about all the things: garments, temples, Joseph Smith, polygamy, tithing, hard stuff. And the goal wasn't to dig super deep into each of those topics, but was to talk about them in a way and then send them to like a comingtochrist.org website.
Yeah.
Mormon.org.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's where they could get depth of understanding and whatnot. And I remember being on that video, I just felt like I was on. I just loved sharing the gospel online. And at that time, my goal wasn't to be on. So when I felt that being on fire vibe, I knew I wanted to do more of that from a gospel sharing standpoint. But at the moment, that wasn't my role. My role was to build the business and run the business from the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't do much about it. And it was interesting because it was maybe 4 years ago that I felt inspired to start sharing my own things on social
Yeah.
media. And I didn't have any monetization strategy. I didn't have any like business mind behind it. It was just, I felt like my main purpose, I had a little bit of a following already. And I felt like I'm just supposed to talk about my experiences going to the temple. Or if I had a little testimony to share, then I would share it. And maybe some kid things here and there of like fatherhood, of what could be done. But it wasn't an in-your-face type of a vibe. It was just, this is me. This is my life. This is who I am. And if I can make an impact by being an example, then maybe God's using me as an instrument in his hand. That was my feeling. As I continue to share, of course, you get some haters.
Yeah.
You get some negative comments. You get people, you're a part of a cult or you're not Christian. And I'm like, well, Christ is in the name of this church. And that is who I look for. I'm seeking Christ in Jesus in my everyday. So I was able to overcome those feelings. And look, I had served a mission for 2 years, getting rejection all the time.
Yeah.
I was able to handle that and not take it too personal. So as I continue to share just on a consistent basis, I'd get more and more people that would express their gratitude for me sharing my experience at the temple, for me sharing experience in the scripture, and or if I was listening to general conference and what impact it made for me, and how it was impacting them. And so as I'd have people talk about, look, I haven't been back to the temple in 4 years, seeing you consistently go and on a weekly basis, I'm going back. I just met with my bishop, got my temple. Like, it was awesome. And for people to share and say, how do I get a hold of the missionaries? I want to learn more. Or I just had the missionaries come over and I'm getting baptized. Can you come to England and come to my baptism? This is what was coming in my DMs. That was just more and more inspiring. And then, for example, I'd share something and I'd look at the watch time. And there's a video where I bear my testimony of my belief in Jesus. And it got something like 90 days worth of watch time. That means 24 hours 90 days of eyeballs of people's time watching my testimony of Jesus. And I'm like, look, I volunteered for 2 years in Brazil to serve my mission and preach Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think 90 straight days of pure hours. This is one video. This is incredible. I mean, that YouTube video we did back in 2016, 17, 18, or whatever it was, I think it has almost 700,000 views. Like on YouTube, it was a 45-minute video. Like, this is the amount of missionary work that can be done on social media and online is incredible. And to just bring people to Jesus, that's where the motivation is. I feel like God gave me a platform in order to spread his word. And I incorporate my life, which is faith, family, fitness, and finance. I feel like I'm trying to help people just see me as who I am and know that I'm a normal person with normal, life and hobbies. And yet I love being able to talk about my faith.
Yeah, that video actually was one of my first exposures to you.
No way.
I know for me personally, I've always been the person behind the scenes. I'm a digital marketer, and I've always been the one distributing the content that everyone else creates. And lately I've been feeling the pull to create content, which was hard for me because I'm a logical person. I'm like, well, okay, what's the message? What's the audience? What am I going to talk about? Which is hard when I'm trying to determine my personal social media account because I have multiple facets of me.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I've been trying to navigate is like, okay, well, if I do this, what am I going to do? And recently I got the answer of me. I'm a marketer. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm an entrepreneur. All that can exist on one channel, and that is okay. That is me.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I've been considering. So it's been really cool to see how you've been able to do that and just see how it all kind of works together. I've always thought it's so cool that you've been able to live your faith online and in person. So with that, being open about your faith and in your business, what are some key moments or decisions that either challenged your faith or helped you realize that you need values while making business decisions?
Yeah. I mean, I think in business, if you're in business long enough, you're inevitably going to come up with opportunities to not be honest and to hold your integrity. And people will also do that to you. And so it just comes with the territory. Also, if you do it long enough, there's probably a level of success you may attain and some failure along the way. So I'd say those 4 elements are just guaranteed as a business owner or an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And as you have the opportunities where you could cheat or could not be honest, you have to face a decision. It may be that nobody would know, that nobody would see it. And you're alone in that decision.
Yeah.
And so that's a good place to be able to recognize, where do you stand? Because when you make choices when not everybody's looking is, in my opinion, truly who you are. That's your true character. And so when you are faced with a decision, it's up to you. What are you going to do? And it's just you. And then when somebody does it to you, that's also a unique place to be in. Because when somebody isn't honest or they don't hold their integrity with you, you also have a choice. What are you going to do about it? Or anything? Can you turn the other cheek? Are you going to forgive? Are you going to forgive and forget? Are you going to shame that person online? Or are you going to, there's a lot that I have chosen so far in my career to never get into a loss. Now I, knock on wood that I don't have to do that. But have I lost money when someone was not honest? Yes. If hundreds, if not tens of thousands of dollars have been lost when someone was not honest. And I have chosen to not take legal action. That's my own personal choice. I feel like, the choice of legal action for me was not the right answer.
Yeah.
And that, although, do I have to do business with that person again? No, I don't believe I do. But do I need to find a way to forgive that person in my heart? Yeah, we're required to forgive others, and God will do what he will. And I just know that person will have to face whatever consequences that are in their future. And same with me. If I make mistakes, I better know that consequences are in my future. unless I make it right. And so repentance is not just a gospel related concept. This happens in business too, where you can make apology, make it right. So you can pay the money or whatever it is that has to be done to reconcile. That's how you hold integrity. And if you make mistakes, which inevitably we all do, you need to make it right. And that may be embarrassing, and you may have to go apologize, and you may have to pay out of pocket for something that didn't happen right, or you got to fix something that maybe hurts your business. But that's integrity, and that's way more important at the end of the day, because that's the commandment, to be honest to our fellow men. It's sad when money changes people. For me, money, I shouldn't say changes. Money makes the person more of who they are, of who they truly are. And so in the depths of their soul, when someone receives more and more financial success, they will become who they truly are. And so it's our choice, in my opinion, to do the simple steps. And the rules in my book are very simple and primary in nature. If you're saying sincere prayers on a daily basis, calling out to God and showing your gratitude and asking for his help, if you're studying his word and studying the scriptures with true intention and desire to gain further light and knowledge, if you're worshiping at church and on Sunday, trying your best to keep the Sabbath day holy like we're required, if you can find time in the temple and as frequent as possible, which our prophet has been telling us, that is the only place where we can find the most help and direction is in the temple. Of course, lots of other things will help us in the spirit. The temple is the place. And then we serve others, right? If we can do those 5 things as our core foundational building blocks, it will give us the power to ward off the temptation, fight the darts of the adversary that are coming towards us. And it's not complicated. It's these simple and small things that bring greatness to pass. And that's how I've tried to live my life as I've had, my awakening and this rebirth of coming to know who I truly am as a son of God. And I have compassion and empathy for those that are friends or family or even just online, for those who haven't been able to make the choice, the decision of those 5 things, on a daily basis. And it did not protect me from hard trials. He probably even, allowed those hard trials because he knew I could handle them.
Yeah.
And so as he's prepared me through these simple and small things, hard things have come. And I know it's not done. I will have more hard things in my life that I'll have to go through. And I just look at those hard things as, what can I learn from them? Not, why are you doing this to me? But a lot of times it's not that they're happening at me, they're happening for me. And that's not my quote with Tony Robbins, but I love that he says, these things that are happening to you, it's really happening for you. And what are you going to do about it? I love that.
Yeah, I recently heard a quote that was talking about habits and choices, where saying, I choose to have faith even though it's getting challenged. I choose to go to the gym even though I feel tired. Like adding that little bit extra room for things are going to happen. You still have that choice. And so thanks for sharing your insights and your story there.
Can I do one quick snippet?
Yes.
And then we'll jump right in. Talking about the gym.
Mm-hmm.
If people are looking for an example about their gospel and building faith, look no further than the gym. The same level of discipline, the same level of healthy eating that makes a difference, of actual weight training, of breaking the muscles apart to be able for them to rebuild. That is such an amazing example of us from a gospel growth standpoint. You go to the gym every day because you know you can get real results if you go. But if you go and you just talk to all your friends and you just kind of like piddle around, you're not going to have that growth. So you actually have to push yourself and you have to sacrifice. And you may not eat the same things you ate before. You may not watch that show because you still got to go to the gym. Or you may like the gym, to me, that discipline that you find going to the gym is exactly what you need in building the gospel and the relationship with Jesus you have to. So anyway, that was just a side snippet. I love that concept.
Yeah, me too. I found that I can turn the gym into also a moment of growth, either from a gospel standpoint by listening to the scriptures or listening to some wholesome music or listening to an audiobook or just getting in the groove for the day so that I can tackle the day and I'm not nearly as distracted and I can feel more happy and accomplished and come home to my family and kids and be just ready to be a dad rather than feeling like, oh, I haven't had any time to myself. I need a 15-minute break,
Yeah.
just being able to jump right in despite what I'm jumping into that day. So I feel like every business person or entrepreneur or person who is really trying to push towards growth, I feel like they end up looking in the mirror. It seems like the more you push for growth, the more you end up staring at yourself in the mirror. And it seems like some people use it to become more humble and more of a servant leadership, and other people tend to go a little bit more on the pride side of things. Tell me more about how you navigated that through your life and how you integrated your beliefs.
I think you can either choose to be humbled or you can be compelled to be humbled. Right?
Yeah.
That's an example in the scriptures we hear about. I still try to find ways to be humble and humble myself. But unfortunately, I had to be compelled a few times. In 2016, I didn't realize at the time, but I had just shut down my business, one of them.
Mhm.
The other one was still there and taking care of our family. I had to shut down that one, and it was like, that compelled me to be humble. It compelled me to seek God and what learning I was supposed to get out of it. And the inspiration I got was to go to the temple. And I also got prompted about prepping more, being more temporally prepared. And it was this interesting journey of being temporally prepared that actually led me to the temple industry. I had 5 kids at the time, I believe. And there was a moment that I felt very clearly in my mind that I was not temporally prepared. And I remember asking God, okay, well, what does that even mean? I know I've heard people talk about food storage. I've heard people talk about being prepared, but what does that mean for me?
Mm-hmm.
And it was fascinating because as I allowed my heart and mind to be open to this heavenly downloads, I got very specific instruction on a week by week basis. And it would be, here's what you need for your family. And I would be like, oh my gosh, okay, that seems very direct. So I would go get that thing. Mm-hmm. And I'd come back and return and report it to temple principal. So I'd return, report to my Father in heaven, and I would receive the next download. What was the next thing? And I remember being asked, like, how are we going to afford this? What are we going to do? Because preparing is not inexpensive. There's ways you can do it over time. But I was preparing for a family of 8 at the time to have what we needed for a year. That's what I felt inspired to do. Whether it was inside of our home or outside of our home, I needed to have materials and equipment and food and water sources for filter type things for a year. And so I was compelled to sell my beloved motorcycle. I sold a bunch of stocks that I was, having success with. And I funded essentially this insurance policy, which is my temporal preparedness. But I was compelled to get there through that business having to shut down and being in this weird place of who am I and what am I supposed to do and what does God want me to do? And as I felt after about 6 months of preparing temporarily, I felt this warm hug that, like, good job, you've listened, you've sacrificed, you've gone and done this. And then within 24 hours, I felt a slap across my face, and it said I was not spiritually prepared. And that's when I started going to the temple on. It was fascinating that he taught me the temporal preparedness first, and then he taught me the spiritual preparedness. And it put me on a journey and a path that'll be lifelong. But I would say that I was compelled to be humbled in that moment. I hope that I can humble myself more frequently, but God has to do what he's got to do, and I have to learn one way or another.
Yeah.
Whether he's going to compel me or I've got to do it. I hope I can do it more often. But sure, for me, when the trials and challenges came, leaning on God, it was almost like I needed to prove what everybody had told me was possible. So I felt like, well, if everybody's told me to go to the temple and I haven't really felt it yet, even though I've gone 3 or 4 times a year, I'm going to prove to see if this is right. And I challenge anybody who's listening today, if you're not sure about what the temple is for you, go prove it. Same thing with the Book of Mormon. If you don't have your true testimony yet today of the Book of Mormon or of the prophet Joseph Smith or of whatever gospel principle it is, go put it to the test. This is a gospel principle. We can put it to the test. And if we do our part of true depth of study, of true humble repentance, of becoming clean from the whatever sins or habits that we have, and trusting that God will answer our prayer, you'll receive an answer. And that's something I had to do for myself. And it gave me a depth of desire, of wanting more. It was like the more I came to know, the more I knew I didn't know. That makes sense. It was like
Yeah.
these hidden treasures in the gospel and in the doctrine that I started to get a glimpse of. Oh man, I realized I didn't know much, and I wanted to know more about those things. And so it put me down a path that has been beautiful. And look, I still don't understand all things. Of course not. I have faith that I'll have some of those questions answered. And to me, that's happened. It's actually happened where 5 or 6 years later, oh my God, that's what it meant. And it'll be this beautiful experience of knowing that that item was on my bookshelf. I was able to take down, check it off the list, and move on to the next one. So, being humble is a lifelong goal. Unfortunately, God's had to humble me many times, for sure.
How's your faith guided the way that you use, give, and earn your money?
I try to make business a prayerful action. So I look to God in prayer to know what is my next thing. What should I focus on? Where are my talents and skills best utilized to help the most amount of people? And so when I started the investment group that I have, Influence.vc, that was a thoughtful process of what has God given me from gifts and talents, and how can I make the best impact? And it's interesting because when you think about investing, is that a godly thing? And some people would say, "Oh, well, how can making money be a godly thing?" But I think God wants us to have success because there's a level of abundance in God where you can help support other people. And you may be in a place in your life where money is not as abundant, but you can give of time, you can give of your energy, you can give of other resources you have. And if money is something that is more of abundance, there's a lot of good ways you can help people. I think there's a principle that the more wealth that you gain, you don't find happiness by buying things. And that's not where happiness comes from.
Yeah.
But if you use a certain principles of leverage that money to hire people to do things, can help those people too, even if you can do it yourself. Now, some people may not love this concept. But for example, I was just at a party this week, and this family is very well off. They're affluent and have had much success. But I noticed that they hired somebody to do the barbecue. They hired somebody to do the desserts. They even hired somebody to do a little jewelry, thing, and a photo booth. And some people from the outside in may look at that and be like, "Oh my gosh, they're wasting so much money. They could have taken that money and given it to the poor or something," right? But in reality, those were all very small business, independent entrepreneurs that they were supporting by hiring them to come into this party. And so that mindset shift of when you have the finances available and the abundance mindset, why not support all of these different organizations by hiring them to do their job and then giving them more experience or being a testimonial or a case study for that? I think is a true principle. I think a lot of people also, there may be judgment when somebody has wealth and maybe they have nice things. Maybe they have a nice home or a nice car, or they go on a nice vacation. And they complain that money should be used for homelessness or for people in Africa. What you have to remember is that you don't see most of the time what they are truly, because usually that's done in secret behind closed doors. Not everybody has to have their name up on a building when they donate. And a lot of it is done anonymously. So what helped me from that type of judgment perspective is it also helped me to know that, let's say someone, pays $100,000 for a car. Well, to them and their level of wealth, maybe that's the same as me spending $1,000 because their net worth is so much higher that the percentage of their funds spending on $100,000 or even $1 million something is the same thing for me as to spend $1,000 or $10,000. When I decided to look at life that, instead of judging someone because of whatever nice thing they had, it was just a perspective change of, oh, well, that's amazing. They were able to put that together, because it probably means, and not in all circumstances, but it probably means that if I donate $50,000 somewhere, they probably donated $500,000 somewhere, or $5 million somewhere. And there shouldn't be judgment either way, right?
Yeah.
The woman who gave of her only,
The widow's mite.
the widow's mite, thank you. The widow's mite was all she had. And so when we go towards giving, I like to choose certain organizations that I am passionate. And so, of course, I donate to the church. I'm passionate about the gospel and spreading the gospel towards the world.
Mhm.
I'm also passionate about entrepreneurship. I feel like it's part of my duty, my calling on this planet, is to teach entrepreneurship and investing to create a more abundant mindset in individual families.
Mhm.
When we can get our base needs met, we can typically look outwards. And when we can look outwards, that means we can serve others more. And so getting the base level needs met, having food on the table, having a shelter over your head, making sure your children are clothed and going to school, you're probably in a place that you can help others. And even if you don't have the money to do it, you might have time.
Mhm.
And so there's ways of volunteering your time and your energy and your resources that we've been, in the temple, we're called to do some of these things in a lot of consecration. I think it's when you do have the financial resources to donate financially, find what you're passionate and get behind them and do everything you can. I'm only able to support maybe 3 to 5 different organizations with my fund, but I can support more with my time, or I can support more with my following. Spreading the word about something is worth money to people, and I want to help everyone. But I can't help everyone. And so I have to focus on what are the things that I'm truly passionate about, and then put my resources behind those projects, those people that I believe in. But is there a time where you should start? The time is yesterday. You can start helping people as of yesterday. And whether it's financially or it's your time, that's something that you get to choose. The hope is that when you see God again one day, that he'll be able to say, thank you for being a good steward over the funds or the time and that you didn't waste away the time, the talents, the resources that you had. And I think we're going to reach the pearly gates, and part of that is going to be the judgment of how well did we use the time that we were given here on this earth, and the resources, the finances, that level of success. All of that will be part of that judgment. And hopefully we can be in tune enough, coming back to my little bracelet, be in tune enough to know who we can help, how can we help them, and when. And then follow that plan that God lays out. And he should prompt our heart and our mind to know who are those people.
What advice would you give to someone who is wanting to just start serving and helping?
First thing I would do if you're wanting to start serving and helping other people is kneel down right now, pause the podcast, kneel down right now and say a prayer of gratitude for so many things that you have. And then very specifically ask God, will you send your angels to be with me, to tell me who I need to help today and how? And then you listen. And if you can, write it down, what comes to your mind. And guess what? It may come into your mind that it may be a little awkward, because maybe it's helping somebody that you're maybe not super close to, or maybe even a stranger you don't even know. And it may be helping them in a weird way. Like maybe it is giving them money. Maybe it is cooking them a meal, or maybe it's just knocking on their door and saying, hello, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing? Really? Maybe it's that simple text to a friend or a family member that's maybe your relationship is a little bit on rocky ground. But if you listen, the prompting will come. And then if you act on the prompting, that's when the blessings can come.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Saints podcast. I hope Bubba's story reminded you that real success is measured in meaningful and faithful stewardship. If this episode inspired you, share it with someone who needs the encouragement. And remember, grow your talents, live your faith, and keep building the kingdom. Until next time.